Welcome to the Radio Vagabond, and today we're diving into one of the most fascinating cities in the world, Baku, Azerbaijan. We're gonna explore the contrast of the ancient walled city, where history echoes through every cobblestone, and the ultra-modern skyline that rises above it. But we don't stop there. You can also join me as I hit the road, venturing across the country to see everything from ancient rock carvings to bubbling mud volcanoes. And of course, we'll meet the incredible friendly locals along the way. This episode is packed with adventure, history, and a bit of the unexpected. My name is Palabo, and this is Azerbaijan, the land of fire.
That one says, booking successful, confirmed.
Yeah, sure.
It's around 3:30 a.m., and I finally get to the hotel after a long day of traveling.
Sir, I called the property which they mentioned in his email, Shah Palace.
All I want to do is crash. But there's a problem.
They couldn't find your booking. Probably it was like said, this reservation, I think this one last minute reservation you booked, or just you booked up?
This one I booked a week ago.
Apparently, my reservation didn't go through.
Yes, I know, but
And it's a Ramadabai, and it's the right address.
Yes.
And
I'm standing there, showing the poor guy at the front desk my confirmation.
yes, maybe the reservation wasn't done because how to say.
And he's doing his best to help.
So even I couldn't find the reservation for today.
Now, here's the thing. This kind of stuff happens when you travel. You plan everything, but you have to be ready for things to go off script.
Is it all reservations are prepaid? Yes.
yeah, it's all prepaid.
And honestly, staying calm and flexible is the key.
I was hoping to go to sleep because it's been a long day.
No need to freak out. I mean, worst case scenario, you end up with a funny story that you can share on your podcast, right?
We got the number, we got the check-in and the room,
And you might end up sleeping in the lobby. But hey, that's all part of the adventure.
So both, sir, your both reservations are prepaid for 3 nights, and then addition, both reservations are paid.
yeah.
On this trip, I'm, again, traveling with my trusted travel companion, Cynthia Riganese, aka Cynthia Globe, an extreme traveler from Florida who's been to more countries than me. We met in Florida a few years back, and since then we've done quite a few trips together. You might remember our road trip through Saudi Arabia and our adventures in Australia.
Because my friend says, could I book for her? So I did that. I booked 4 nights for her, and then
To make sure that we're at the same hotel, she asked me to book a room for her too. But none of the 2 rooms were showing up on his computer.
It's almost 6 in the morning, 5 minutes to 6, and I landed 3 hours ago or so at Baku airport, and I booked a taxi to take me to the hotel, which is a bit more than half an hour's drive. And I got to this hotel that I booked. I made a booking for both me and my friend Cynthia, who's joining me very soon. And we got a confirmation from Zen Hotels. And then when I got here, they had no booking, even though we got a confirmation and it was prepaid. So it took me half an hour, 45 minutes talking to the guy, and he managed to find a room for 1 night, and then let's see what we can do tomorrow. He said talk to the manager tomorrow, but he got us set up in a room for the night. Whatever's left of the night is not much, but I decided to wait for Cynthia because when I was speaking to him, she said that she had landed and she should be here in just any second now.
Hi.
How are you? Yes, Jim.
Yeah.
Seems like way longer than a month.
It seems like.
If travel is your passion and you want escapism while still upholding your work and family responsibilities, you can travel vicariously from the comfort of your own home. This is the Radio Vagabond.
Before we start, let me remind you that this episode is supported in part by Hotels25.com. It's a website that helps you find the best deals on hotel rooms, guest houses, and hostels all over the world. Just go to Hotels25.com and make a simple search.
Gotta keep moving.
After just 3 hours of sleep, we get out in the city of Baku. The first thing we notice is the mashup of old and new. The city is known as Paris meets Dubai. It's got the Paris-like charm and the Dubai-like architecture. On one side, we've got the ancient walled city with its narrow cobblestone streets and buildings that look like they've been there forever. It's like walking through a history book. But as soon as you look up, you see these sleek, futuristic skyscrapers, like the flame towers, lighting up the skyline. What's surprising is how well these two worlds fit together. We're strolling past century-old Persian and Ottoman influences 1 minute, and then suddenly we're in the middle of the modern, Western and Dubai-style architecture. It's like Baku just decided to throw all these styles together, and somehow it works. Then there's the cosmopolitan vibe. I wasn't really expecting it, but Baku has all the high-end shops, restaurants and cafes you'd find in any European city. It's a city that's full of life, where old tradition and modern luxuries live side by side. Standing in old Baku and look up, you can see 600 years of evolution.
Standing at this point and looking upwards towards the flame towers is that you can see Baku contrasting in 600 years. Because down here you see 15th century medieval religious Baku with Persian architecture styles. Further outside you see yellow towers, you see the pink palaces, you see the grey buildings along the pink palaces. That's Imperial Russian time Baku, colonial past and architecture styles of Art Nouveau, Baroque, Neoclassic, Rococo, Moorish. Further outside above the pink palace you see white marble building with pink windows. You see the red roof building on the right side with yellow and white columns. And all high-rise buildings under the slope up to the hill. That's Soviet time Baku with socialist and communist past and architecture styles of a Stalinist empire style and the Soviet modernism. And up into the hill you see flame towers. That's a futuristic 21st century Baku. You see stone Baku and glass and steel Baku. You see grey Baku, blue Baku, old Baku, new Baku. 4 different historical layers over just 600 years. Just one view for you to see.
This is Ghani, a young Azerbaijani with curly hair who knows all there is to know about his city. He's our guide on a so-called free walking tour. It's based on tips after the tour, so it's not actually free, even though you're not obligated to pay. You always do. We're in the old town, in front of the main gates of the town wall.
Well, we're right now in front of the main entry gates to the city. We call it Koshagala Gapları, or simply the double gates. This plan of the city from medieval times, we are right now standing at this point of the city.
The old town is an interesting place with so much history.
Let's look in the history book.
The old town of Baku, also known as Ishiri Sheher, which means inner city, has a rich history dating back centuries. The exact date of the old city's founding is uncertain, but archaeologists believe that human settlement in the area could date back as far as the Bronze Age, 3300 to 1200 BC. But the city really began to take shape in the 12th century. Some structures like the Maiden Tower may date back even earlier. In the 12th century, Baku became the capital of the Shirvan state under the Shirvanshah dynasty that ruled the region for centuries. They built many of the landmarks we see today, including part of the fortress walls and towers. During the medieval period, Baku flourished as an important stop on the trade routes, as a strategic location on the Silk Road. In 1806, Baku was conquered by the Russian Empire. That marked a new chapter in the city's history, as it began to expand beyond the old walls. Throughout its history, the old town has been a melting pot of cultures, with influences from Persian, Arabic, Turkish, and later Russian civilizations shaping its architecture and culture. Today, the Old Town stands as a living museum, showcasing over 1,000 years of Azerbaijan history and culture.
You can follow Palabo on his Facebook page. Join the conversation about traveling and being a digital nomad. You can also see pictures, videos, and stories that don't necessarily make it into the podcast. Simply search for the Radio Vagabond.
He's the radio vagabond, podcasting his way from icy peaks to tropic greens display. Every download a story key, inspiring souls to wander, to live and be free.
The Old Town had a strong defense system with 2 canals, or moats, outside the wall. Local legends say that one was filled with water and the other with oil.
So outside the outer wall there was moat, and that moat would be filled with water. But in between of these 2 walls there was also moat, but that moat would be filled with oil. So enemy attacked the city, unaware of the fact that there's this moat filled with oil, so they had to first cross the moat with water, then jump over the outer wall, and all of a sudden they trapped in between of these 2 walls, and that was the moment when the city's defenders would set under fire, observe army burning into death.
So the idea of the oil-filled moat was a defensive strategy to set invaders on fire by shooting an arrow with fire on them.
So we have this saying that to walk into Old Town, you have to walk through water and fire. It's a joke, but then there's an historical context. That's how the city being defended in medieval times.
The Old Town of Baku is the heart of the city's history. When you walk through its narrow cobblestone streets, you immediately feel the weight of centuries that have shaped this place.
We are already inside the Old Town. What I want you to see on your right side, 2 domes, or the cupolas, that comes from the earth. They are 17th and 18th century bathhouses.
What makes the Old Town so special is how well preserved it is. The ancient palaces, mosques, and old inns for travelers are still here, many of them beautifully restored.
Now, today, Azerbaijani government required you a vaccine passport, right? So you can be able to enter Azerbaijan. But medieval times, the city's administration would require the travelers, before they enter the city, they had to first take a shower. Because they might bring the plague or diseases from outside world, the population of the city were not immune against. So it was necessary to force them clean up, wash and dust off all the germs that they bring from outside world, then enter the city here.
The Old Town isn't just a museum, though. People still live here. You'll see residents hanging laundry from balconies and chatting on the streets. So it's not just for tourists, it's a part of the daily rhythm of Baku. This mix of history and everyday life makes the Old Town feel alive.
But today, this is the most touristy part of Old Town. Cafes, restaurants, souvenir shops, the agents in here sell the services to the tourists. Right?
And then you can't miss the Maiden Tower, a massive, mysterious stone structure that's one of the most iconic landmarks in Baku. Well, all over Azerbaijan.
It's an iconic landmark such as Colosseum in Rome, yes? But apart from the fact that it's the iconic landmark, this is the most mysterious tower in the city. Because there are 4 main questions about this tower, historians yet to provide an accurate answer to those questions. And these questions are: when it was built, who was the architect, what's the purpose of use of constructing this tower in here, and why the hell we call it Maiden Tower. Pretty much about everything, right? Yeah. So the question about when it was built, the most commonly accepted theory is that it was built in 12th century, because most of the scholars believe that this is part of the city's defensive fortifications. And wall around the city was built in 12th century. Therefore they argue, well, it must be built in 12th century then. But then there was the scholar Sarah Usher Bailey. She argued that it was not built in 12th century, simply because you see the stones of this tower are not as same as the stones that they used to build the wall around the city. And then her main argument is that this is not Islamic architecture.
But it's not only when it was built that people can't agree on. They're also debating what it was originally used for.
Then the next question, okay, why they built this tower in here? What was the purpose of use? Why we would need such a tower in here? There are 2 dozens of the theories. The first one is simple, it's a defensive watchtower. Second theory, it was an observatory, they argue. And then the third theory, as this could be the landmark that predates Islam, this was Zoroastrian temple. In India, you call them the Parsis, yes? So the Zoroastrianism is arguably the first monotheistic religion in the world. But we don't know why they built here in the first place. But what we can argue for sure, purpose of use of this tower changed across the centuries, because 19th century they used as a lighthouse.
So, was it a fortress, a watchtower, or an ancient temple? No one really knows for sure. And then there's the thing about the name, Maiden Tower.
But then the last but not least, the question, okay, why the hell we call it Maiden Tower? Historians primarily focus on maiden as a word.
One interpretation is that it's because it was a strong fortress that couldn't be taken, one that was untouched or unconquered, or just maiden in historical terms, which is often used to symbolize purity or invincibility. But then there's also a slightly creepy and sad urban legend, a story of what happened when the king thinks his daughter is hot and wants to marry her. Have a listen to this.
But then there are urban legends, and these urban legends are much different than historical account. And most popular urban legends are about a king returning from a warfare and finding out that his wife delivered a baby girl. Well, then he doesn't like her. He wanted a son, so he can continue his royal lineage. So furious about this situation, he orders the execution of his daughter. But then her nanny decides differently, fortunately, and saves her. But later on, she grows up to this beautiful lady, and king get an accidental sight of her. Unaware of the fact that that's his daughter, he's the king, marries all these beautiful ladies in the town, right? So he wanted to marry her. But then she's aware of the situation that that's her father, she can't marry him. So she asks the king to build such a glorious tower, only after that she will marry him, hoping that this will never happen. But then the king managed to build her this tower, and she finds no other choice but climb up to the top and leap off to the sea and take her life and avoid the marriage this way. Well, it's a very sad story. But if you give me a chance, because there is another variation, and this variation is that now she has a boyfriend. Her boyfriend hears about it and goes and reaches the king's palace and kills the king. Come to rescue his girlfriend, but when she hears about his footsteps, she thinks that that's her father. So she climbs up to the top and leaps off to the sea. Now it's a very sad story.
And there's no story where she doesn't die?
There are stories where she doesn't. There are stories about the heroic woman prevents the enemies taking over the city. The fairy haired girl appearing on the Maiden Tower. There are dozens of legends about the Maiden Tower.
No matter when and why it was built and how it got its name, it's truly a remarkable landmark, the Colosseum of Baku. And it used to be what was on the cover of all Azerbaijani travel books and advertising posters from here, but now is 3 other towers that have taken over that role.
It's very kind of unfortunate that the recent developments, when they built the flame towers, people somehow forgot about it. Because right now the Baku's the advertisement posters, flame towers, not the Maiden Tower. Before it would be the Maiden Tower.
Yes, the flame towers. We'll get back to those. But first we want to walk a bit more around the old town on our own. It's surprisingly compact. You can walk from one end to the other in about 20 minutes, but you'll want to take your time because every corner reveals something new, whether it's a hidden courtyard, an ancient bathhouse, or a charming alley filled with traditional carpets. One thing that's quite a unique spot in the old town is the Miniature Book Museum. It's home to a collection of over 6,500 miniature books from around the world, making it one of the only museums of its kind. The books come from all over the world and are written in different languages, some as small as just a few millimeters in size. While you can buy the books, it's not a shop, but a museum, and an interesting place to visit if you're interested in rare and miniature editions with some of the books dating back several centuries. The collection is the Guinness record holder as being the largest in the world.
The Radio Vagabond. Gotta keep moving.
Now that we know a few things about the old town, let's have some facts about the country, Azerbaijan.
And now, facts about where we are.
Azerbaijan is located in the Caucasus region, at the crossroads of Eastern Europe and Western Asia. It borders the Caspian Sea to the east Russia to the north, Georgia to the northwest, Armenia to the west, and Iran to the south. It's also got a small border of just 17 kilometers, about 10.5 miles, with Turkey.
How big and how many people?
Approximately 86,600 square kilometers, 33,400 square miles, and slightly smaller than Portugal. The population is a bit more than 10 million people. The capital of Azerbaijan is where we are now, Baku, with a population of 2.3 million people. That makes it the largest city in the country and in the entire Caucasus region.
Official languages.
The official language is Azerbaijani, but as a part of the former Soviet Union, Russian is also widely spoken. You can mostly get by with English here, especially in the major cities and among younger generations, but it's still moderate compared to Western standards. Azerbaijan is often seen as a country with limited democracy. While they do hold elections, many international organizations have pointed out that these elections aren't truly free and fair, and there are concerns about political repression and the lack of real freedom for opposition groups to participate openly in politics. Azerbaijan is considered an upper middle-class country driven by its oil and natural gas industries. It's often referred to as the Land of Fire. That's in the title of this episode. This nickname stems from the country's rich history with natural gas and oil. For centuries, Azerbaijan has been known for its fire mountains and eternal flames. Baku is also considered one of the first places in the world where oil was drilled commercially. The oil industry in Baku has a long history, dating back to 1846, when the first mechanically drilled oil well was established near the city. 1846, can you imagine?
Religion.
Islam is the main religion in Azerbaijan, with over 97% of the population identifying as Muslims. But compared to many other Muslim-majority countries, religion plays a smaller role in daily life.
The flag.
The Azerbaijani flag consists of 3 horizontal stripes, blue on the top, red in the middle, and green in the bottom. A white crescent and an 8-pointed star are centered in the red stripe. The blue represents Turkic heritage, the red symbolizes progress and modernity, and the green stands for Islam.
What's the typical local food?
The national dish is plov, a saffron-flavored rice meal with various meats and vegetables.
What's a typical local beer?
One of the most popular local beers is the Shiralan beer, named after a town near Baku. It's a pale lager and is quite popular across the country.
Famous proverb from here.
Not knowing is not a sin. Refusing to learn is. This saying talks about the value of education and truth in Azerbaijani culture. Another one is, the rope of lies is short. That suggests that dishonesty doesn't last long and the truth will come out sooner or later.
And that was Facts About Where We Are.
This is the Radio Vagabond podcast.
I asked our tour guide, Gani, to tell me a bit more about their relationship with their neighboring countries, Russia, Georgia, Armenia, Iran, and Turkey. And he starts by saying something that surprises me.
Right now, Azerbaijan is the second most Azerbaijani populated country in the world.
Did you get that? Azerbaijan is only the second most Azerbaijani populated country in the world. The one with the most Azerbaijanis is Iran.
We are 10 million people living in here, and we estimate that there are up to 30 million Azerbaijanis live in Iran.
10 million Azerbaijanis live in Azerbaijan and up to 30 million in Iran. That number might be a bit on the high side, but not impossible. More conservative estimates say 10 to 15 million, but some Azerbaijani sources place the number closer to 20 to 30 million. No matter what, it's a lot. And why is that? Well, it's because of things that happened a long time ago. The land in Iran, where they live today, used to be a part of the old Persian Empire. a group who were Azerbaijani, ruled the area for a long time. Later, in the early 1800s, two big wars happened between Iran, what was then called Persia, and Russia. After these wars, two treaties in 1813 and 1828 were made. Persia had to give up some of its land, including what's now Azerbaijan, to Russia. This caused the Azerbaijani people to be split between two countries, Iran and Azerbaijan, and many of them stayed in northern Iran.
Because of that, Iran is the most Azerbaijani populated country in the world. And then you would think that Azerbaijan and Iran are BFF. Yeah, best friends forever. But we are not. Our best buddy is the country in the west that's called Turkey. This is because Azerbaijan doesn't see its own future neither in the north, nor in the east, nor in the south. We see our future in the west, aligned with the Euro-Atlantic institutions like the NATO and the EU, while Russia and Iran would do anything possible to prevent their presence in this region. Turkey, as a NATO member country, as an EU country, enables that process. They don't have any problem with that. And much more than that, with Turkey, we speak exactly the same language but different dialect. And ethnically, they're the Turk and we're the Turk, so we call Turkey and Azerbaijan one nation and two states. We are a brotherly nation. But that doesn't mean that our relationship with Turkey is perfect, because Turkish government thinks that they are the godfather. So we should bow, kiss their hands and get their blessing and pursue our foreign No. We are an independent country. We want to be treated equally.
So they're friends with Turkey. The Turks just need to treat them with a little bit more respect. Another good friend is their neighbor to the northwest, Georgia.
But when it comes to the Georgia, our relationship with Georgia is labeled as a Catholic marriage. Because we like it or not, we're stuck together. And then the Georgia is such a friendly and independent country who offers us this corridor to reach to Turkey, so the west. We go to the Russian government, they treat us as their backyard, so they can throw all the garbage and shit that they would like in their backyard there. We go to the Iranian government, they hate us for the fact that we enjoyed independence, because they think that Azerbaijan is just their province. Russia grabbed from them, so we should go back joining Iran. So Azerbaijan has a three-color flag, blue, red and green. Blue represents our Turkic heritage, red represents our adherence to the progress and modernity, and green represents our Islamic heritage. So when Azerbaijani diplomats in Iran, they flip Azerbaijani flag upside down. So the religion comes at the top and ethnicity comes at the bottom. So that's the way to insult the Azerbaijani statehood. They say, sorry, we didn't know it, we made a mistake. Come on, you made a mistake. They do it deliberately there to insult the Azerbaijani statehood.
So Russia treats them as their backyard where they throw their trash. Iran doesn't think they have the right to be independent and teases them by turning their flag upside down. The Turks are okay if they were only a little bit more respectful, and they're like in a Catholic marriage with Georgia.
Other than that, we are cool with our neighbors, but yes, except for Armenia, because we have a war with them.
And then there's only one left, their mortal enemy.
We don't like each other, we hate each other, and we kill each other. We're the fierce enemy. But much more than that, Armenia has 2 Russian military bases. They're right now building the 3rd one by Azerbaijan border. And an Armenian border with Turkey and Iran guarded by Russian soldiers. I mean, what the hell? You're a sovereign country, but your borders are guarded by the soldiers of a foreign... Imagine that the American borders are guarded by the Chinese borders. Well, no. So that means that Armenia is already under the influence of one of those narcissistic, selfish, arrogant, great power that who want to divide and rule this small geographic area. Well, that means if Georgia comes under that influence, we got nowhere to go. We're under that influence as well. If Azerbaijan comes under that influence, the next is Georgia for sure. So we have to stick together to keep the most valuable thing for us, and that's our independence. We want nothing else, but we want a respect and recognition of our... So we're giving us the struggle for the survival here.
The conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan is mainly about a region called Nagorno-Karabakh. This area is internationally recognized as a part of Azerbaijan, but it has a large Armenian population, and both countries claim it. Fighting broke out after the Soviet Union collapsed in the early 1990s, leading to a war where Armenia gained control of Nagorno-Karabakh. In 2020, a new war erupted, with Azerbaijan regaining much of the territory. Despite ceasefires, tension between the two countries are still high, and the conflict is still ongoing. I know there's a lot more to say about it than that, but This was my attempt to explain a very complex situation in 30 seconds.
He's the radio vagabond with tales at every face, charting maps, unknowing man. He's got it made, he's got it made. These vagabond shoes, they're blazing his crusade. Every step, every story, gotta keep moving.
That's it for this episode of the Radio Vagabond. Next time we'll take a closer look at the futuristic architecture of Baku before we get into a rental car and head out into the beautiful landscapes of the country to a place that's famous for its ancient rock carving dating back over 40,000 years. We also go all the way to the north and get within a few meters away from the Russian border, get a crazy drive in an old ladder to some mud volcanoes, almost run out of gas in the middle of nowhere, and then on the last night in Azerbaijan, one of us gets hit by a car and has to go to the hospital. That and so much more in the next dramatic episode from Azerbaijan. My name is Palabo, and I gotta keep moving. See ya.
Radio Vagabond.
Produced by RadioGuru.co.uk.